Hi everyone, welcome into the Mercer County Football Show here on WBCB1490.com alongside the Trentonian George O'Gorman. Mike Sampson with you as always. Presented by the St. Francis Medical Center, your heart hospital in the city of Trenton. George, we had a hugely entertaining game on the WBCB Sports Network on Friday night. A 35-32 win for West Windsor Plainsboro North over Notre Dame. One of the more entertaining games of the weekend and one of the more entertaining games of the season, that was.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Steinert-Nottingham game that was 12-0. No, that was a very entertaining game, and more credit to I don't know. I mean, I'm very impressed with the passing of the quarterback.
Kevin Murphy, yeah.
Kevin Murphy did an excellent job. 5 touchdown passes?
5 touchdown passes, 302 yards.
302 yards. I mean, he was... No wonder he's the player of the week by the 12th Man TD Club. Actually, he's the co-offensive back of the week because in that same game, Alex Roman had, 250 yards and 3 touchdowns for Notre Dame. So they shared the 12th Man TD Club offensive player of the week, offensive back of the week. And another big test coming up for the Northern Knights this week when they go in to play Hamilton West. And, and then another big test for Notre Dame, too, on Friday night as they go out to play undefeated Lenape, which has moved into the top 20 in the state rankings.
One thing you can say about Notre Dame, though, George, is I think they might have found their quarterback in Xavier Lazinski.
Xavier Lazinski is just an outstanding athlete, as we mentioned during the broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
He's the third brother to play sports at Notre Dame. Nick Lazinski, his oldest brother, was the quarterback who moved in a backup role as a sophomore and then went on to quarterback the Irish for 2 years. And the other brother, Blaise Lazinski, who's now at the University of Notre Dame, was an outstanding baseball player for Notre Dame's Irish. And as we've mentioned several times, the entire family has gone to Notre Dame University. They probably should rent a house in South Bend. With the 3 brothers, I think his sister went there. And I'm presuming that Xavier will go to Notre Dame because the mother and father are both graduates of Notre Dame, and the grandfather played football at Notre Dame. So it's a family. I don't know if there's any other family at Notre Dame University that has the ties to that school as the Lazinski do. But the kid's very talented, and it's unfortunate for Notre Dame. That was an opportunity for them to get their second win, but Xavier just had a pass intercepted at the end zone. In the end zone to seal that game for the Northern Knights. Jeff Riley. I mean, his ball club is really doing well. They've got some big tests coming up. They're at Hamilton this week, and then I think their final game of the regular season is at Princeton.
Yeah.
Or is it Princeton at...
Princeton is at West Windsor Plainsboro North. Should be a great one. And speaking of Princeton, the Little Tigers were the other big story of the week. They finally fell from the ranks of the unbeaten, losing 48-28 down in Winslow.
Yeah, down in Winslow. It's... Well, don't get me started on that. That's another thing that I don't like about this WJFL. They match up teams that were comparable records the previous year. And Princeton, because they were 0-10, got to go down and play Winslow, which had a bad record last year. But Winslow plays a lot, I would say they probably play a tougher schedule than Princeton does. But at any rate, Princeton got knocked off. But Princeton should still continue on and possibly go into the playoffs with an 8-1 record. I mean, I think their last game, right, is against West Windsor North.
Yeah, they have West Windsor Plainsboro South this Saturday. Then they have the winless Robbinsville Ravens, and then they finish it off with West Windsor Plainsboro North.
They could get a fairly good seed in the upcoming playoffs, although they'll probably be in Central Jersey Group 3 again.
Yeah.
But Charlie Gallagher and the Princeton Little Tigers, although in that game last week, Rory Hellstrom scored 2 touchdowns, both on pass receptions.
Hmm.
And, David Beamer did another outstanding job, but Scott Smallsman, he didn't really, he had been scoring for them. I think he just, I don't think he was injured. I guess he just primarily played defense in that game. But, I mean, it's, we're talking about the big games coming up, and I think the biggest game Friday night would be Rancocas Valley at Allentown. Lenape last week knocking off Cherokee really gave them a lot of, credibility in South Jersey. I thought they were probably one of the best teams in South Jersey. They had won 4 games the previous 4 seasons, 4 games each of those 4 seasons, and now they have an outstanding, ball club. And I just think that they're going to just roll over Notre Dame. But Allentown's got a tough Rancocas Valley game coming up, and just on the way that Allentown played against Lenape a couple of weeks ago, coming down to the last minute of the game, last seconds, where Allentown had a shot to pull it off and got stopped twice inside the 5-yard line, probably right at the goal line. I think if Allentown can knock off Rancocas Valley this week, it would set up a huge match, and probably would give Allentown a shot to share the championship, because remember, RV still has to play Lenape in November.
So that should be a great game. That's coming up this Friday night. When we come back here on the Mercer County Football Show, we'll recap the results from last week and start to take a look forward at this coming week. You're watching the Mercer County Football Show, presented by the St. Francis Medical Center here on WBCB1490.com.
Don't forget, if you miss any of your local high school sports action, you can read all about it in tomorrow's edition of the Trentonian. For your complete local and national news 7 days a week, it's the Trentonian, or online at thetrentonian.com. The only newspaper serving Bucks, Burlington, and Mercer County 7 days a week, it's the Trentonian.
Jerry Blavitt here to tell you about St. Francis Medical Center, the heart hospital in the city of Trenton. St. Francis Medical Center is one of the region's top cardiac care centers, serving all of Mercer, Bucks, and Burlington counties. Their staff of highly trained physicians provide state-of-the-art heart care to patients with cardiovascular disease and pride themselves as being the only regional heart center to offer a full spectrum of individualized services. And Consumer Report ranks St. Francis Medical Center in the top 10 hospitals in New Jersey for safety, and the #1 hospital in Mercer County, St. Francis Medical Center, the Heart Hospital.
Welcome back to the Mercer County Football Show here on WBCB1490.com. That's George. I'm Mike. Pleasure to be with you as always. Taking a look at the week that was last week in Mercer County, other than West Windsor, Plainsboro North, and Notre Dame, it was kind of the week that wasn't.
Yeah, there was a lot of blowout games and some close games. Ewing on homecoming day over there at the John Hausman Athletic Complex on Saturday afternoon named the field after their best football coach ever, in my opinion, Bruce Martz, who had won state championships, led Ewing to state championships in 1981 and 85, when Ewing was one of the dominant teams in Mercer County football. And it was an outstanding performance for Drew Bessler and the Allentown Blue Devils, as they got a lot. Daz Harper, a couple touchdowns. Savon Brittingham, a couple touchdowns. They handled a winless West Windsor South team, which hung in there to the end, and really and got some points after not scoring in their previous 2. I guess they had not scored in their previous 8 or 9 quarters. Mm-hmm. But that set up Ewing for a huge test this Friday night against Hopewell Valley. Ewing lost twice to Hopewell Valley last year, once in the regular season and then again in the playoffs when Hopewell Valley started its run to the Central Jersey Group 3 title. But you got to figure Hopewell Valley a 2-touchdown favorite, I would think, coming in. Lorenzo Bryant, 5 more touchdowns last week in their blowout win over Delrain.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just pretty much unstoppable. And Ewing's got all the pieces in place. And I think, isn't it next week when Ewing plays Allentown? When Hopewell plays Allentown.
Yeah, next week, next Saturday night.
That's a big game, a huge game for both clubs.
And we can confirm we will be out there next Saturday night. Game will be heard on 107.7 The Bronx when Allentown takes on Hopewell Valley.
I mean, that's probably the biggest game of the regular season in Mercer County, and looking forward to that one already. But Allentown has another big test this week. As we mentioned, they play Rancocas Valley, and that's a ball club. I know we've gotten some emails and some calls about we kind of bypass Allentown, but that's not necessarily true. I mean, Allentown's got a nice ball club, a very good ball club. They may be the best team in Mercer County, even though they're not a Mercer County school. technically they're right over the Hamilton line. But Michael Curry, the quarterback, doing an outstanding job, not only scoring with his running, but throwing touchdown passes. Dean Apostolico is an excellent running back. Jordan Winston, a couple more touchdowns the other day. Jake DeRizzi, he may be one of the best. This is a good year for kickers, and Jake DeRizzi may be one of the better, kickers in the county. And Allentown is really, a lot of times you overlook the linemen, but they've got some guys. They got a lot of guys that go both ways, and it's really unfortunate that they lost that game to Lenape. But then again, as we said, maybe that just shows how good Allentown is. The fact that Lenape has moved up in the state rankings and is coming off a huge win. At least for us, it's a huge win when they went in and beat Cherokee.
Right.
When everybody said, well, Cherokee's going to prove to Lenape that they're really not that good. But in the reverse, it was Lenape that showed it. And Lenape's, they got some big tests coming up. Remember, they still got to play Rancocas Valley, and they got Notre Dame this week. Although they should be able to pretty much handle the Irish and continue what right now is the poorest season. I don't want to say worst, but the poorest season that Chappie Moore has ever had as a coach. I mean, last year Notre Dame finished 4-6. Mm-hmm. They win this game, they could probably finish maybe even worse than that.
Yeah, it could be trouble for the Irish. But some of the results from last week: Riverside 34, Robbinsville 12, Allentown was all over Heightstown 49-14, Trenton 22-10 over Hamilton in a game that was heard on the WBCB Sports Network. Also heard on the WBCB Sports Network was Nottingham defeating Steiner 12-0. West Windsor Plainsboro North 35, Notre Dame 32. We talked about that game at length. Cinnaminson 35-13 over Lawrence. It looks like, unfortunately for the Cardinals and Nate Jones, team has come back down to, for lack of a better term, come back down to earth a little bit, losing 3 straight, but then facing some tougher opponents as well.
Cinnaminson is a very good ball club.
Yeah.
And the quarterback, I can't even pronounce his last name. I know it begins with a T, T-H-E-R. He scored 3 touchdowns for Cinnaminson, and that's a ball club that was expected to be one of the better ball clubs coming out of Burlington County this year, and they've certainly lived up to that that preseason billing. And the Cardinals got another huge test against a Burlington County team when they played Northern Burlington, and Northern Burlington is really, they've been to the playoffs 3 of the last 4 years, or 4 of the last 5 years, something like that. Tyler Odell, the quarterback, who we've seen in American Legion Baseball, an outstanding baseball player. He's the quarterback for the Greyhounds, and they're a little bit I think that they're too strong for Lawrence. But Lawrence has got some talent. Kadeem Neal, I mean, he had a couple of touchdowns last week, and he's a very talented player. It's going to be an interesting game come playoff. In the middle of the playoffs, when when Lawrence and Hopewell Valley meet on Thanksgiving morning.
Yeah, that should be a great one. That'll be a fun one. Also, Ewing 39, West Windsor Plainsboro South 6. We talked about that game. And we also talked about Princeton falling from the ranks of the unbeaten, losing 48-28 to Winslow Township. When we come back here on the Mercer County Football Show, we'll take a look around the upcoming week. We got some great games for you and a busy week on the WBCB Sports Network. Back with more in just a moment.
I'm Merrill Reese to tell you about our good friends at the Revere Ristorante Italiano in nearby Ewing Township at 802 River Road. I can tell you that from South Philadelphia to New York's Mulberry Street, there's no better Italian cuisine than that served at the Revere. Start your meal with one of their great appetizers or salads. Entrees include outstanding veal dishes, fresh seafood daily, excellent steaks and chops, homemade pasta dishes, daily specials, and much more. You can also enjoy their bar area, where on most weekends, entertainment is offered. The Revere also does off-premise catering and can accommodate private parties for any affair, including business functions. Call the Revere Ristorante Italiano for more information and reservations at 609-882-6365, 882-6365. The Revere Ristorante Italiano open Monday through Friday for lunch and 7 days for dinner at 802 River Road, right off the Wilbertha Road exit on Route 29, in nearby Ewing Township. Discover the dealer for the people, Haldeman Ford Subaru, Route 33 in Hamilton Township. One of the region's finest state-of-the-art service facilities for all makes and models. A service facility so good, local school districts get their buses serviced at Haldeman. Police fleets, local municipalities get their cars and trucks serviced at Haldeman. From oil changes to tire sales, Haldeman Ford services all makes and models. And they offer tires for just $10 over cost on name brand tires like Goodyear and Pirelli. And their waiting room offers complimentary food. And there's a special Wi-Fi room available for your use. So no matter where you purchase your car, get it serviced at Haldeman Ford, the dealership for the people on Route 33 in Hamilton Township.
Welcome back to the Mercer County Football Show here on WBCB1490.com. That's George. I'm Mike. Pleasure to be with you here on the WBCB Sports Network. As always, 3 games coming up for you this weekend. First game coming up Friday night will be down in Lenape, as it will be Notre Dame taking on Lenape. That should be an interesting game, tough game for the Irish coming up on Friday night. But a nice test for some of their underclassmen, the Alex Romans, the Xavier Lazinskis, to go up against the top 20 team in the state.
They got two of the best receivers.
Yeah.
They got Jake Litka and they got Hagan.
Yeah.
Charles Hagan. And is there another one?
Hackett.
Thomas Hackett. They got 3 excellent receivers.
They certainly do. There's a lot of firepower on that Irish team, and it just hasn't quite clicked this season. Also for you on the WBCB Sports Network this weekend, Trenton will be at Nottingham. That game will be heard Saturday on the AM 1490 and on the FM 1077 The Bronx and 1077thebronx.com. We highlight Heightstown taking on Steiner. Those are the 3 games we have for you on the WBCB Sports Network.
And there's another big game in Hamilton Township when you've got West Windsor North going in to play the Tom Hoagland's Hamilton Hornets.
Yeah, that should be an interesting game.
Interesting thing in the mentioning the 3 Hamilton Township teams, some comments were made recently at the 12th Man TD Club. One of the coaches wondering how come Hamilton Township, none of the schools have lights, and how come they have to play 1 at 11 and 1 at 1, and Tom Hoagland mentioned, he said, well, you got to ask one of the old school boards. And the truth is, and I don't know if anybody in Hamilton Township remembers this, before Nottingham High School became a senior 4-year school, their football field, and they were the original Steiner, they had lights. The new principal came in and couldn't believe that the lights were taken down at Nottingham and moved on to a Bantam football field down off of Bunting Avenue, off Layler Street. And he said, I came from Long Island. Everybody played Friday nights. You had lights here and took them down? That's an interesting question. And I know that John Adams said he couldn't believe why Nottingham doesn't have lights. Well, prior to John Adams going to Steiner, they did have lights at Nottingham. And, there was a referendum a couple of years ago on the school board where they incorporated working on the field at Hamilton West, and they incorporated it in a bond issue for windows. Well, the newspapers played it up as the fact that the bond issue centered all on making the athletic facilities at Hamilton West better, and really that wasn't the case. I remember asking then Superintendent Neil Benzavengo, why did you put the football? And he said that was the whatever it was, the advertising company that handled it. But at the time it would have been a great thing because you would have had schools like Nottingham and Hamilton, which don't have the field capabilities and the field capacity that Steiner has. They could have multi-purpose fields.
Yeah.
But instead, they have to have a separate soccer field, a separate football field. And what does it do? It means cutting the grass on all those fields, lining them every week. I mean, and that just adds to the expense of paying the maintenance people. Whereas if you had an all-purpose field, you wouldn't have to do it. But at any rate,
the solution is simple. The solution is simple. One multi-purpose field, Veterans Park, everyone plays there.
Well, I still remember the days at Old Cedar Gardens when Joe Bush, that was his nickname, he was the maitre d', I guess, came up with a suggestion to take Veterans Park and build a multi-purpose stadium where you could play the football games there, you could play the soccer games there, you could play the baseball games there. The teams could alternate. They would each get a chance to play under the lights. That got shot down. You know, it's amazing that people that 40 years ago and 25 years ago had the insight to know what was going to work, but yet it was turned down. And now the people who see the success that other schools are having, why don't we have it? Well, you had the opportunity to have it, a long time ago, where you could have built a centralized stadium comparable to Waterfront Park,
Sure.
where you could have played everything.
Listen to this man. Make it happen. Games this weekend on the WBCB Sports Network. We mentioned we got 3 of them. Games around the county as well. Robbinsville at Pemberton on Saturday. The Ravens, just looks like it's going to be another tough season. And to be honest with you,
Andrew Patterson's doing a good job in his first year there, but they just don't have the firepower that a lot of the other schools have. And,
is it possible that the ghost of Irving Fryer is still kind of haunting that team?
Don't go that route. Just forget that. That's in the past and leave it there. But the unfortunate thing, and I feel bad for the Ravens, they're traveling all over southern New Jersey.
Yeah.
They're playing 2 games against Mercer County teams.
Yeah.
I mean, that brings up another issue. I've never been in favor of this WJFL. I would prefer the Mercer County team stay in Mercer County and play their own schools. But for some cockamamie reason, they wanted to come up with this WJFL. Let those Burlington County teams, let them all stay by themselves and play, whether they play the Camden County schools or the Gloucester County schools. I was happy with Mercer County schools playing Mercer County schools. Let's face it, Mercer County's football is good, but you're not going to be on the same level as the teams in the Shore Conference. I don't believe so. Bergen County.
Right.
So now you got teams traveling all over the southern New Jersey playing games. Princeton going down to play Winslow Township. I mean, it's not because the Little Tigers lost their first game. What credibility, not credibility, what interest is there? I wonder how many Princeton fans went down to see the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't see some of these games. Who was it early in the season? Robbinsville going down to play Clayton? But that's a whole other issue. You can argue that for forever.
Other games should be a great one on Friday night. Rancocas Valley takes on Allentown. Trenton and Nottingham, we mentioned, that'll be on the WBCB Sports Network. Hamilton and West Windsor Plainsboro North. Interesting game for West Windsor Plainsboro North. That team could be moving to 5-2. George, it wasn't but 12 months ago that program had lost 17 straight.
Well, Jeff Riley came in. Chris Casamento, by the way, is at Somerville. I think we mentioned last week that he was in the Shore Conference, but I think he's up at Somerville. They've had Kevin Murphy. I mean, he's been doing an outstanding job for 3 years now.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and check the stats to see if he could break the passing record. What was it? Connor Farrell, a couple of years ago at West Windsor South, I think may have set the record for the most yardage or whatever. But that West Windsor North at Hamilton game could be a very good game.
Yeah.
Because you've got 3 excellent receivers on North, and you've got, don't discredit, Tom Hogan's Hamilton Hornets. Kyle Bond can throw the ball.
Yeah.
And Malik Sneed is the leading receiver right now, in number of catches in Mercer County. So that could be a very good game. It could probably be maybe another shootout like West Windsor North had last week at Notre Dame.
Yeah, very well could be. Other games we mentioned, we're going to have Staten and Hightstown on the WBCB Sports Network Friday night. Notre Dame at Lenape. That will be on 107.7 FM and 107.7thebronx.com. Hopewell Valley at Ewing on Friday night. That should be an interesting game. We'll keep an eye on that one for you. Lawrence at Northern Burlington. And West Windsor Plainsboro South is at Princeton Saturday. Chance for the Little Tigers to move to 6-1 on the season. So, George, pretty interesting week coming up. We'll certainly keep our eyes on Rancocas Valley and Allentown, and we'll also have our eyes as well on Hopewell Valley and Ewing.
Last weekend in October.
Yeah. Hard to believe.
2 months gone already. And once we get into November, there's that first weekend of games and then the playoffs start.
Yeah.
I mean, this season is going by really quick.
Certainly is. We'll see you next week on the Mercer County Football Show, presented by the St. Francis Medical Center.